Sometimes the impact that happens is different than the impact you intended. Here's what to do. We've all had situations where our intent impacted differently than we intended. The intent was to find the file here, but the man also tried to be funny. Regardless of the intent, his comment was uncalled for and insulting. Saying, "I didn't mean it," or trying to say his intent wasn't to insult doesn't matter. The impact was that it did. Here, he was still funny, but not in a way that was insulting, so the impact was much different. The woman laughed and helped him find the file. Sometimes our intent has a different impact. Sometimes the impact is altered from intent because of the filter the recipient sees it through. An intent is a message delivered with a specific purpose or communication goal or objective. It can also include nonverbal communication, the style in which it's delivered. Impact is how your message is received by the target or the audience around the target, and it includes an interpretation of intent. A common occurrence is with a new person who may not know the relationship of coworkers and is a good example of misplaced intent. Here he's just asking for some help. Sam responds with a joking comment. Joe thinks Sam is criticizing him. Sam tries to deflect, but it doesn't work because he tries to deflect blame onto Sam. Regardless of intent, it was still an insult to Joe for which Sam is responsible. Joe is the new guy. He doesn't know how his coworker's kid. He takes Sam's comment as an insult. Sam assumes Joe, the new guy, knows everyone kids. Joe hasn't really given permission to joke, and Sam insults Joe. Here we have Joanne and Susan, who are coworkers. Joanne makes a comment to Susan. What's her intent? Here, the intent is different, with the same thing said and the same impact. Finally, a third intent. The same words were said and the same impact resulted. Does the intent really matter? Was one of Joanne's intents true? Or did Joanne realize she said something unacceptable and created an excuse to cover herself? It really doesn't matter. Intent is not considered as part of the determination of whether a statement is discriminatory or harassing, but impact is. Intent can be used as an excuse when what the person said was unacceptable. Don't dismiss an incorrect impact you might have caused. It can fester. Plus, you may miss an opportunity to learn to communicate better. Everyone has filters, stereotypes, or opinions of the world around them. Don't let those rule you. It can cause an issue. Also, be careful about letting your filters decide what the intent is about something that was communicated to you. Deal with the impact instead. What this means is that our intentions don't always align with what we say or do, and this can impact how others receive what we say or do. It also means that the recipient may have preconceived ideas of the sender's intent. As you can see, this is a huge basis for miscommunication. So you caused an impact. Someone else is upset. What do? Well, you start by talking to them. Listen to them. Don't defend yourself, but understand where the other person is coming from. Take a deep breath. Listen to their feeling and acknowledge how they feel. Apologize. Don't say things that come across as putting the blame on someone else. Try, "I'm sorry for doing that. I'll do better next time." An impact happened to you and you're upset. What do you do? Well, focus on your feelings and use I statements and talk with the other person. For example, you could say, "I felt really hurt when," and describe what happened instead of, "You hurt me." This centers the conversation on the impact the action had on you versus the situation itself or placing blame on the other person. Talk about how it could have been done differently. But remember, it's not your role to manage their emotions. Be willing to hear their side after you expressed yours. That doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but it's best to come into the conversation with open ears. Be aware of where you might have assumed something that actually wasn't there. Is there anything the other person could do differently if this situation happens again? Now that they know the impact of their action, how can you hold them accountable in the future? If they become angry or upset, close it down for another time. Say something like, "I can see this is upsetting. Let's talk about this tomorrow." While it can be difficult, it's best to address an impactful situation, especially when it's someone you will continue to have contact with. A healthy relationship in the workplace depends on not letting things fester and having open communications. You can learn from mistakes and impact. Thank you for listening to our tutorial on intent versus impact in the workplace.